Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, will continue with the poultry theme. Our next presentation will be given by Daniel Roberts. Daniel's topic is entitled Living and Dying with Avian Influenza and encapsulates the One Health concept. His study tour is already having interest shown by Smallholder magazine, and there'll be a number of reports and articles featured in that magazine shortly. He's recently set up, however, and I'm sure he might tell us this, but he's recently set up a new business in Pembrokeshire making unpasteurised goat's cheese, and has recently found a new love for limoncello and has now started a new hobby of making his own cocktails. So, Daniel, I look forward to hearing what you're going to tell us this afternoon.
Now's the time to bring up the limoncello if anybody's got any. Why should avian influenza matter to each and every one of us in this room? Let me ask you this. Do you keep your own poultry? From only a few in the backyard to hundreds of thousands on a commercial unit. Do you work in the poultry industry? On farms, in factories, in feed mills, just to name a few? Or do you spread poultry manure on your land as part of your business model? Maybe you supply grain or straw to the poultry industry. Perhaps you enjoy the shooting season or walking in the British countryside. And if by chance none of these criteria apply to you, then I'm pretty sure you have eaten eggs or poultry. And I'm absolutely certain that you have benefited from the NHS. So why is this relevant? It's relevant because it shows that every citizen in this country would be significantly affected by a large-scale avian influenza outbreak. And because of that, all of us need to be invested in ensuring that the UK is ready for that eventuality. However, after 18 months of study, I have concluded that the UK is a potential ticking time bomb for a catastrophic avian influenza outbreak that has the ability to combine the horrors of the Spanish flu of 1918 and the foot and mouth outbreak of 2001. In short, it would not only cripple the poultry industry, but would have a substantial economic and human impact, the likes of which none of us have ever experienced before. Today, I will outline to you why the UK is underprepared and provide some strategic recommendations that would help remedy the situation. So what is avian influenza? Put simply, it's a zoonotic virus carried by wild migratory birds. As they move around the planet, some succumb to the virus, but many of these birds continue along their flight paths, shedding the virus as they go, and infecting resident non-migratory birds, the birds that inhabit our lakes and rivers here in the UK. Wild birds are robust carriers of the virus, and most can survive quite happily as active hosts. Indeed, they could in some cases, and are used as early warning signs. Take the two flyways, for example, that cut across Russia and Europe as an example. As the harsh winter kicks in the northern hemisphere, the wild birds fly east and then south, usually stopping off in the UK around Christmas time. To give you an idea of just how deadly the virus is, I ask you to cast your minds back to the foot and mouth pyres that blighted the British landscape back in 2001 as a comparison to one of the most recent large-scale bird flu outbreaks to affect a first world country. In 2015, the US lost 50 million turkeys and laying hens as the virus ripped through the Midwest. That's half of the UK turkey market lost in just one outbreak. Almost 10% of the US egg production was wiped out overnight. For as far as the eye could see, chickens and turkeys were composted in rows as they either died from the virus or were preventatively culled to minimise spread. It was a sobering sight. But an even greater fear was realised back in 1997 when a 3-year-old boy from Hong Kong became the first modern-day human victim of the virus, sparking waves of panic globally about the possibility of a human pandemic. This is the reason why we must work holistically and across government departments and industry to ensure we never experience such an outbreak, but also that if one occurs, we are best placed to effectively and promptly shut it down. The problems begin in our own backyards, our own small holdings, our own houses, to anyone that raises 1 chicken or 10 to put fresh eggs on the table. The biggest threat of an avian influenza outbreak comes from hobbyists who are unaware and ill-prepared, and more alarmingly, not even on a national register to allow them to access educational material. And if you don't believe the extent of the problem, I'll tell you a story of a Northamptonshire garden centre I visited one afternoon. The centre sold chickens to backyard hobbyists, so I asked them if these enthusiasts were advised or educated about what to look out for in terms of AI. I was astonished then to hear their response. No, was the answer. I've since had a restraining order implemented for visiting any more backyard flock centres. It was clear they knew little or nothing about the virus, and their only comment about AI information was that it was a thing the government does. This was not an anomaly. Throughout the country, on eBay, Gumtree, and in your local classifieds, poultry is being sold and purchased with no education offered on AI, and no requirement to be registered on a national database. So why is this important? Why is the backyard chicken owner fast becoming our biggest AI headache? Because, and it may surprise you to hear this, nearly 50% of confirmed cases in the 2016-17 UK outbreak of AI came from backyard flocks. Almost half. And yet we still have no registry of these owners and no direct education to advise them about what to look out for. It could be as simple as someone who has 2 chickens on their allotment. One day they find one dead and place it in the rubbish, not knowing that it died from showing symptoms of AI. This could lead to an outbreak that hits humans and the industry, and all of it was preventable. Following the 2015 outbreak of AI in the US, they quickly learned that biosecurity could only be improved across the industry by addressing a wider audience than just the commercial producer. Initially, the USDA set up Defend the Flock, an outreach campaign focused on preventing the spread of infectious diseases. But this campaign only targeted specific areas of the industry. The campaign featured a website with webinars, resources, and checklists, and this has driven biosecurity improvements. But this year they have gone further and understood that there needs to be a clear and shared responsibility that encompasses all. Backyard keepers and commercial industry alike now fall under one national Defend the Flock banner. I believe DEFRA needs to set up a similar outreach campaign with some urgency and must consider a national register, accessible to all, no matter how many chickens you keep, so that hobbyists are able to be directly educated. This must be elevated with some urgency, as even one backyard outbreak can affect the UK's AI disease-free status and result in immediate trade barriers being implemented. This could particularly affect the high-value breeding export industry. Currently, any outbreak must be notified to the OIE, the World Organization for Animal Health. However, this is a flawed system, as some countries have exploited the recommendations by creating unfair and unjust trade barriers. In some cases, there have even been cover-ups by countries looking to preserve their AI-free status, which ultimately led to catastrophic consequences. However, the OIE do have a tool that we can use effectively and still continue to export during an outbreak. Called compartmentalisation, it means that if an outbreak happened in the UK, hatcheries or farms that produce high-value breeding stock can still export due to their stringent and world-leading biosecurity measures. Finally, there is another issue that could increase the possibility of a large-scale AI outbreak. That is perhaps the most uncomfortable question the poultry industry has to ask itself. It's the feather-covered elephant in the room and will require robust and rational discussion. We have to ask ourselves, how big should the poultry industry grow, and should there be governance on where new poultry farms are built? A study in China has found the intensification of their poultry industry is a significant contributing factor in the development of AI strains that can affect humans. It almost certainly increases the risk of initial small outbreaks becoming catastrophic. In Holland, the poster child for poultry intensification, back in 2003, they lost 1/3 of their national flock. Much of that can be attributed to the high density of operations in a small geographical area. The UK is fast heading down that route. It might surprise you that the UK has a higher density of poultry at an estimated 644 birds per square kilometre than the likes of the US at 200, Thailand at 530, and Hong Kong at 472. The county of Powys sits at an estimated 1,351, over double the UK average. In Powys alone, 105 planning applications for poultry premises have been passed since April 2016, with the county now home to an estimated 7 million chickens. With a 4% year-on-year growth in the UK broiler industry, there are no signs of a slowdown anytime soon. Coupled with this is the intensification of free-range systems in high-risk areas. A case in point is East Anglia, home to large wetland areas where migratory wild birds stop off. It's also home to a booming free-range industry that is rapidly expanding. The question is, should this expansion continue in an area that is at a significant risk of an AI outbreak due to migratory birds mixing with commercial flocks living outdoors? In conclusion, the UK is not properly prepared for a large-scale avian influenza outbreak, and in some cases is advancing the risk. However, by sharing collective responsibility and showing some brave leadership, we could be far better positioned to deal with the virus. Because if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it is the mindset that it is not a case of if, it most certainly is a case of when and how. Thank you.